What if I told you that the most dangerous person in any room is often the one nobody sees coming? The morning sun filters through the grimy windows of Ridgewood High, casting long shadows across hallways that have witnessed countless stories of triumph and tragedy. But today, those shadows seem to cling a little longer to one particular figure, a 15-year-old boy whose footsteps echo with the weight of invisible burdens. Logan Brooks adjusts his thick-rimmed glasses as he navigates the bustling corridor, his backpack slung over one shoulder like armor that's already proven insufficient. His frame carries the soft curves that have made him a target since middle school, but his eyes, those gentle brown eyes behind the lenses, hold depths that his tormentors have never bothered to explore. The first bell rings, a shrill reminder that another day of survival has begun. Logan clutches his worn copy of The Amazing Spider-Man, closer to his chest, finding comfort in stories of underdogs who become heroes. If only he knew how prophetic that choice would prove to be. Watch where you're going, Brooks. The voice cuts through the morning chatter like a blade. Chase Morrison emerges from the crowd, his Letterman jacket announcing his status as Ridgewood's golden boy. At 17, Chase has perfected the art of cruelty, wielding popularity like a weapon against anyone who doesn't fit his narrow definition of worthy. Logan's shoulder connects with the wall as Chase's deliberate bump sends him stumbling. The comic book slips from his grasp, pages fluttering like wounded birds before settling on the scuffed linoleum. Around them, students pretend not to notice, their silence as crushing as any physical blow. "Sorry," Logan murmurs, the word barely audible as he kneels to gather the scattered pages. His hands shake slightly, not from fear, but from something deeper, a restraint that requires more strength than his classmates could ever comprehend. Chase's friends materialize beside him like a pack of wolves sensing vulnerability. There's Jake, whose empty eyes reflect the hollow nature of borrowed confidence, and Marcus, who laughs too loudly at jokes that aren't funny because belonging feels better than standing alone. "Look at this," Chase says, his voice dripping with manufactured disgust, reading baby books in the hallway. "What's next, Brooks? Gonna cry for your mommy?" The words land with practiced precision. Logan's mother works double shifts at the diner downtown, her hands permanently stained with coffee and her back bent from carrying burdens that should never fall on one person. She doesn't know about the daily gauntlet her son faces, and Logan intends to keep it that way. "It's not a baby book," Logan says quietly, his voice steady despite the tremor in his chest. "It's about someone who uses his power to help others." Chase's laughter echoes off the lockers, sharp and hollow. "Power? You?" He leans closer, his breath hot against Logan's ear. "The only power you have is making people lose their lunch when they look at you." The hallway erupts in snickers and whispered comments. Logan feels the heat rise in his cheeks, but underneath the embarrassment, something else stirs, a memory of weathered hands guiding his movements, of a voice that spoke of strength coming from within. "Pathetic," Chase continues, his audience growing bolder with each cruel word. "I bet you've never even been in a real fight, probably run home to mommy every time someone looks at you wrong." Logan's fingers tighten around the rescued comic book. The cover shows Spider-Man in mid-swing, muscles coiled with potential energy, face hidden behind a mask that protects not just his identity, but his humanity. For a moment, Logan wonders what it would feel like to let go of the careful control he's maintained for so long. But then he remembers the lessons learned in a small dojo behind his grandfather's house, the patient voice that taught him the difference between strength and violence, between power and destruction. His grandfather's words echo in his mind. "True strength, Logan, is knowing when not to use it." So he stands, comic book clutched to his chest, and walks away. Each step requires more courage than his tormentors will ever possess, but they interpret his retreat as weakness. They always do. The first period bell rings, scattering students to their respective classrooms. Logan slides into his seat in the back corner of advanced physics, where he can observe without being observed. His teacher, Mrs. Henderson, nods approvingly as he pulls out his notebook, unaware that the quiet boy in the corner carries secrets that would shatter everyone's assumptions. As the lesson begins, Logan's mind drifts to the after-school hours he spends at the community center, helping younger kids with their homework and organizing food drives for families in need. He thinks about the elderly residents at the nursing home where he volunteers on weekends, their faces lighting up when he reads to them or simply listens to their stories. These people see him differently, not as a target or a victim, but as a young man with a generous heart and gentle strength. They don't know about the other side of his life, the side that's about to emerge in ways nobody expects. The morning passes in a blur of equations and literary analysis, but Logan's thoughts keep returning to the hallway encounter. Something has shifted today, like a pressure valve approaching its limit. He can feel it in the way his hands remain steady despite the morning's humiliation, in the way his breathing stays controlled even as his heart pounds with suppressed energy. At lunch, Logan sits alone at his usual table, methodically eating the sandwich his mother packed with a note that reads, "Have a great day, sweetheart." He smiles at her careful handwriting, unaware that across the cafeteria, Chase and his friends are planning something that will change the trajectory of his entire high school experience. The afternoon sun slants through the cafeteria windows, casting everything in golden light that seems almost prophetic. Logan finishes his sandwich and opens his physics textbook, losing himself in the elegant simplicity of Newton's laws. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. If only he knew how soon that principle would be tested. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. If this story reminds you of something you've experienced, share your experience in the comments. It might touch someone's heart today. Now take a deep breath and prepare for a journey that might change how you see the world. But what Logan doesn't realize is that today's humiliation was just the beginning. Because Chase Morrison has decided that breaking Logan Brooks is going to be his masterpiece, and he has no idea that he's about to awaken something that should have stayed sleeping. The afternoon sun casts long shadows across the Brooks family's modest apartment as Logan climbs the creaking stairs to the third floor. His mother won't be home for hours. Her shift at the diner extends well into the evening, serving coffee to truckers and comfort food to families who remind her of better times. Logan's key turns in the lock with a familiar click, opening the door to a world that exists in stark contrast to his school life. Here, surrounded by his mother's careful touches and his grandfather's lingering presence, he can finally breathe. The living room holds treasures that his classmates would never understand. Faded photographs of a man in traditional martial arts garb, his weathered hands positioned in perfect form. Certificates written in elegant Japanese calligraphy hang beside them, their significance lost on anyone who doesn't know the story behind them. Logan sets his backpack down gently, his movements already shifting from the hunched defensiveness of school to something more fluid, more centered. He approaches the small shrine in the corner, not religious, but reverential nonetheless. His grandfather's worn training uniform hangs there, the fabric soft with age, but still carrying the weight of decades of discipline. "I had another rough day, Grandpa," Logan whispers to the photograph. In it, Master Kenji Brooks stands beside a much younger Logan, both of them frozen in a moment of perfect kata. The old man's eyes hold the same gentle strength that Logan inherited, though few have ever bothered to look closely enough to see it. Logan changes into simple training clothes, black cotton pants and a white t-shirt that has seen countless hours of practice. His movements are deliberate as he clears space in the center of the living room, pushing furniture aside to create his dojo. The transformation begins with his breathing, deep, controlled inhalations that center his mind and prepare his body. His grandfather's voice echoes from memory. "Karate begins and ends with respect, Logan-kun. respect for your opponent, respect for the art, and most importantly, respect for the power you carry within. Logan's first movement is barely perceptible, a subtle shift in stance that speaks of years of training. Then his hands begin to move, tracing patterns in the air that tell stories of ancient warriors and modern discipline. Each technique flows into the next with liquid precision, his body remembering lessons learned in secret. The living room becomes a battlefield where Logan fights invisible opponents, his strikes stopping mere inches from their imagined targets. His control is absolute. Every punch could shatter boards, every kick could break bones, yet he pulls back with the restraint that separates the warrior from the savage. Sweat beads on his forehead as he moves through increasingly complex combinations. His feet whisper across the worn carpet, his breathing steady despite the intensity of his practice. This is Logan's true self. Not the stammering victim from school, but a martial artist whose skills would humble fighters twice his size. The kata reaches its crescendo with a series of spinning kicks that could drop multiple attackers, followed by a meditation pose that brings him back to stillness. Logan holds the position for long minutes, his mind processing the day's events through the lens of his training. His grandfather had been a different man than the gentle soul Logan remembers. Master Kenji Brooks had earned his black belt in Okinawan karate during a time when respect was earned through blood and sweat. He'd fought in tournaments where defeat meant months of recovery, had trained with masters who saw weakness as a luxury no true warrior could afford. But when Logan was born, something in the old man had shifted. He saw in his grandson not a future fighter, but a future protector. The training he provided was comprehensive, not just techniques but philosophy, not just power, but wisdom. "Your fists are not weapons, Logan-kun," his grandfather had said during one of their final sessions before his death. "They are keys. Keys that can unlock doors or lock them forever. Choose wisely which doors you open." Logan rises from his meditation, his body relaxed but alert. He moves to the small bookshelf where his grandfather's journals rest between volumes on martial arts philosophy and strategy. The handwriting is careful, mixing English with Japanese characters that Logan has learned to read. One entry catches his attention, dated just months before his grandfather's passing. Logan shows remarkable control for one so young. His technique improves daily, but more importantly, his heart remains pure. "I worry about the world he will face, the cruelty of those who mistake gentleness for weakness. But I have given him tools, not just to fight, but to choose when fighting is necessary." The words hit deeper today than they ever have before. Logan traces the characters with his finger, feeling the weight of legacy and responsibility. His grandfather had known this day would come, the day when Logan would face a choice between his training and his principles. A knock at the door interrupts his reflection. Logan quickly returns the journal to its place and approaches cautiously. Through the peephole, he sees Mrs. Chen from downstairs, her arms full of grocery bags and her expression worried. "Logan, honey, could you help me?" she calls through the door. "These bags are heavier than I thought." Logan opens the door immediately, his face breaking into the first genuine smile of the day. Mrs. Chen has been like a grandmother to him since his grandfather's death, providing the kind of unconditional acceptance that school has taught him to treasure. "Of course, Mrs. Chen," he says, taking the bags from her arthritic hands. "Let me carry these upstairs for you." As they climb to her apartment, Mrs. Chen chatters about her day, about the new medication that's helping her joints, about the letter from her grandson in college. Logan listens with the same attention he gives to his martial arts training, understanding that kindness requires as much discipline as any fighting technique. "You're such a good boy, Logan," she says, as he sets her groceries on the kitchen counter. "Your grandfather would be so proud of the young man you've become." "I hope so," Logan replies quietly. "Some days I wonder if I'm living up to what he taught me." Mrs. Chen's weathered hand touches his cheek with surprising gentleness. Strength isn't always about what you do, sweetheart. Sometimes it's about what you choose not to do. Her words follow Logan back to his apartment, where he returns to his training with renewed focus. This time, his movements carry a different energy. Not just the precision of technique, but the weight of purpose. Each strike is a question. When will enough be enough? Each block is a barrier. How much can one person endure? The evening deepens, and Logan's training intensifies. He moves through advanced forms that his grandfather reserved for special occasions, techniques designed not for sport, but for survival. His body remembers every lesson, every correction, every moment of praise earned through dedication. But with each perfect execution, Logan feels the growing tension between who he is and who the world expects him to be. His classmates see a victim. His neighbors see a helper. His grandfather saw a warrior. The truth, Logan realizes as he moves through a final sequence of devastating combinations, is that he is all of these things. The question isn't whether he has the power to defend himself, it's whether he can continue to choose restraint in a world that mistakes mercy for weakness. As he finishes his training and begins to put the furniture back in place, Logan catches his reflection in the darkened window. For just a moment, he sees not the bullied teenager from school, but someone else entirely. Someone his grandfather would recognize. Someone Chase Morrison has never met. But tomorrow, Logan realizes with growing certainty, that might change. Because every warrior eventually faces a moment when the choice is taken from them, when restraint becomes impossible, when the gentle soul must make room for the fighter within. And Logan Brooks, despite his kind heart and careful control, is about to discover just how dangerous a cornered warrior can become. Tuesday morning arrives with deceptive normalcy, sunlight streaming through Ridgewood High's windows as if the building itself hasn't become a battlefield. Logan walks through the front doors with the same quiet dignity he's carried for 3 years. But something in the air feels different today, charged like the moment before lightning strikes. Chase Morrison leans against his locker, surrounded by his usual entourage, but his eyes track Logan's movement with predatory focus. Yesterday's encounter wasn't enough. It never is, for someone whose self-worth depends on making others feel small. Today, Chase has decided, will be the day Logan Brooks learns his place once and for all. Did you see how he just walked away yesterday? Chase mutters to Jake, his voice carrying the bitter edge of someone whose authority has been questioned. Like he's better than us or something. Jake nods eagerly, desperate to maintain his position in the hierarchy. Yeah, man, kid thinks he's untouchable. But Chase isn't interested in simple agreement. He's planning something bigger, something that will cement his reputation and break Logan's spirit so thoroughly that he'll never again dare to show even a hint of backbone. Logan navigates the hallway with practiced awareness, his peripheral vision cataloging potential threats while his expression remains neutral. His grandfather's training extends beyond physical techniques, situational awareness, de-escalation, reading the emotional temperature of a room. Right now, that temperature is rising dangerously. First period passes without incident, but Logan can feel eyes on him throughout AP history. Whispered conversations stop when he approaches, resume when he passes. The social ecosystem of high school has detected a shift, and like all ecosystems, it's preparing for change. During the break between classes, Logan stops at his locker to exchange textbooks. The hallway buzzes with its usual chaos, slamming doors, rushed conversations, the constant navigation of teenage social dynamics. But Logan's trained senses pick up something else, the deliberate footsteps approaching from behind. "Hey, Brooks." Chase's voice cuts through the noise like a blade through silk. "We need to talk." Logan doesn't turn around immediately. His hands continue their methodical work, organizing books with the same precision he applies to his kata. About what? About respect. Chase moves closer, his presence a calculated invasion of personal space. See, I've been thinking about yesterday, and I realized something. You disrespected me in front of everyone. Logan finally turns, his brown eyes meeting Chase's with calm directness. I walked away. How is that disrespect? Because you didn't apologize. Chase's voice carries the entitled anger of someone who's never faced real consequences. You bumped into me, made me look bad, and then just left, like I'm nobody. The irony isn't lost on Logan. Chase, who has spent years making him feel like nobody, now claiming victim status over imagined slights. But Logan recognizes the dangerous territory they're entering. His grandfather's voice whispers from memory, "When a small man feels threatened, he becomes most dangerous. Not because he grows stronger, but because he grows desperate." "I'm sorry if you felt disrespected," Logan says carefully, choosing words that offer apology without admission of guilt. "That wasn't my intention," but Chase isn't interested in reasonable resolution. He's performed this dance too many times, escalated too many conflicts to back down now. His reputation among his peers depends on maintaining dominance, and Logan's quiet dignity threatens the very foundation of that reputation. "Sorry if I felt?" Chase's laugh is sharp, brittle. "See, that's exactly what I'm talking about. You think you're smarter than everyone else, don't you? Using fancy words, acting all superior." Logan's jaw tightens almost imperceptibly. The accusation stings because it reveals Chase's deepest insecurity, his fear that intelligence might be more valuable than physical intimidation, that quiet strength might be more admirable than loud aggression. "I don't think I'm better than anyone," Logan says, his voice steady despite the tension building in his chest. "I just want to get through school without problems." "Well, you've got problems now." Chase steps closer, his voice dropping to a menacing whisper. "Big problems. Because I'm not done with you, Brooks. Not even close." The warning bell rings, scattering students toward their classrooms, but Chase doesn't move. His eyes hold Logan's with the focused intensity of a predator who's decided to make this personal. "Lunch," Chase says simply. "Cafeteria. We're going to finish this conversation properly." Logan watches Chase walk away, surrounded by his followers like a general leading his troops. The hallway empties around him, leaving Logan alone with his thoughts and the growing certainty that his carefully maintained world is about to collapse. In third period chemistry, Logan tries to focus on molecular structures and chemical bonds, but his mind keeps drifting to other kinds of bonds, the ones his grandfather forged between discipline and power, between restraint and action. Every lesson in the lab seems to echo with deeper meaning. For every reaction, there is an equal and opposite reaction. Stable compounds require balance. Introduce too much pressure, and even the most stable elements can become explosive. Mrs. Rodriguez notices his distraction during the lab exercise. "Everything all right, Logan? You seem a million miles away." Logan forces a smile. "Just thinking about the reactions we're studying, how stable things can become unstable if you change the conditions." She nods approvingly, unaware that Logan isn't really talking about chemistry anymore. The morning stretches like pulled taffy, each minute adding to the weight of anticipation. Logan moves through his classes with mechanical precision, taking notes, answering questions, maintaining the facade of normalcy while his mind prepares for what's coming. In English literature, they're studying To Kill a Mockingbird, and the irony isn't lost on Logan as they discuss Atticus Finch's philosophy about walking in someone else's shoes. He wonders if Chase has ever tried to imagine what it feels like to be the target, to walk through hallways, knowing that each day might bring fresh humiliation. "What do you think, Logan?" Miss Patterson asks, pulling him from his thoughts. "About Atticus's advice to Scout about not fighting?" Logan looks up, realizing the question carries more weight than his teacher could possibly know. "I think," he says slowly, "that sometimes fighting isn't about throwing punches. Sometimes the hardest fight is the one you have with yourself, deciding when to walk away and when to stand your ground." The class murmurs approvingly, but Logan barely hears them. His mind is already in the cafeteria, already seeing the confrontation that's building like storm clouds on the horizon. The lunch bell rings with the finality of a judge's gavel. Logan gathers his books slowly, each movement deliberate as he prepares for what might be the most important moments of his high school career. Students flow past him toward the cafeteria, their chatter bright and carefree, unaware that they're about to witness something that will change everything. Logan takes a deep breath, centering himself the way his grandfather taught him. His hands are steady, his heart rate controlled, but beneath the surface, something elemental is stirring. The gentle boy who volunteers at nursing homes and helps elderly neighbors is still there, but he's no longer alone. Walking alongside him now is the warrior his grandfather trained, the protector his mother unknowingly raised, the young man who has finally reached the moment where choosing not to fight might no longer be an option. As Logan approaches the cafeteria doors, he can hear the familiar chaos of lunch period, hundreds of voices blending into white noise, the clatter of trays, the scrape of chairs. But underneath it all, he senses something else. Anticipation, energy, the collective held breath of a crowd that knows something is about to happen. But what none of them realize, not Chase, not his followers, not the spectators already gathering, is that Logan Brooks has been preparing for this moment his entire life. And when a true warrior finally chooses to fight, the world itself holds its breath. The cafeteria doors swing open with a theatrical creak, as if the building itself knows it's about to witness something extraordinary. Logan steps inside, his eyes adjusting to the fluorescent brightness that casts everything in harsh, unforgiving light. The familiar chaos of lunch period surrounds him, 500 teenagers navigating the complex social ecosystem of high school dining. But today, something is different. Conversations pause mid-sentence as Logan enters. Eyes track his movement across the room. The usual background noise of clinking trays and scraping chairs seems muted, as if the entire cafeteria is holding its breath. Logan moves toward his usual table in the corner, the one where outcasts and loners gather, where he can eat in relative peace while reading or studying. But his path is blocked by a wall of Letterman jackets and calculated smirks. Chase Morrison stands at the center of his pack, arms crossed, wearing the expression of a hunter who's cornered his prey. Jake and Marcus flank him, their faces carrying the eager anticipation of followers who live for moments like this. Behind them, other students have begun to notice the confrontation brewing, phones already emerging from pockets in anticipation of something worth recording. Well, Chase says, his voice carrying across the immediate vicinity. Look who decided to show up. I was starting to think you chickened out, Brooks. Logan stops 10 feet away, his lunch tray balanced in steady hands. I'm just here to eat my lunch, Chase. Same as everyone else. Same as everyone else. Chase's laugh is sharp, manufactured for maximum humiliation. See, that's where you're wrong. You're not the same as everyone else. You're special, aren't you, Brooks? Special in all the wrong ways. The circle of observers grows larger, students gravitating toward conflict with the inexorable pull of social gravity. Some film openly, others pretend to look away while keeping their cameras ready. The cafeteria staff, overwhelmed and understaffed, haven't yet noticed the brewing storm. Logan's grip on his tray remains steady, but something in his eyes shifts, a subtle hardening that his grandfather would have recognized. The gentle boy is still there, but he's no longer alone. Standing beside him now is someone else entirely. I don't want any trouble, Logan says, his voice calm but carrying undertones that make several nearby students unconsciously step back. Just let me sit down and eat. Oh, but I think you do want trouble, Chase continues, feeding off the energy of his audience. I think you've been wanting trouble for a long time. Why else would you keep disrespecting me? Keep acting like you're better than everyone else? The accusation hangs in the air like smoke from a fire that's about to spread. Logan feels the familiar weight of injustice. The maddening reality of being blamed for his own victimization, of having his very existence treated as provocation. "I've never disrespected you," Logan says, his voice carrying a new edge that makes Chase's followers exchange uncertain glances. "I've never done anything to you except try to stay out of your way." "Staying out of my way?" Chase's voice rises, playing to the crowd. "You mean like yesterday when you bumped into me and then walked away without apologizing? You call that staying out of my way?" The lie is so blatant, so obviously reversed, that several students in the crowd begin to murmur, but Logan doesn't defend himself with words. Instead, he sets his lunch tray down on the nearest table with deliberate precision, each movement controlled and purposeful. "You bumped into me," Logan says simply, "but I apologized anyway, just like I always do." "Just like you always do?" Chase seizes on the words like a weapon. "You hear that, everyone? Logan here thinks he's some kind of saint. Always apologizing, always being the better person. Must be nice up there on your high horse, Brooks." The crowd's energy shifts, becoming uglier, more volatile. Logan can feel it, the mob mentality taking hold, the way individual judgment dissolves when people become part of something larger and more primitive. Chase takes a step closer, his voice dropping to a whisper that somehow carries across the entire space. "But you know what I think? I think you're not better than anyone. I think you're exactly what you look like, a fat, pathetic loser who reads comic books and runs away from fights." The words hit their target with surgical precision, designed to wound where Logan is most vulnerable. Around them, the crowd holds its collective breath, waiting to see how the quiet boy will respond to such public humiliation. Logan's hands remain at his sides, but his stance shifts almost imperceptibly. His weight settles more evenly on his feet. His breathing deepens slightly. To untrained eyes, he looks the same as always, gentle, passive, defeated. But to someone who understood the language of warriors, the signs would be unmistakable. "I'm not looking for a fight," Logan says, his voice carrying the deadly calm that precedes storms. "But I'm not running away either." Chase misreads the response entirely, interpreting Logan's stillness as fear rather than preparation. He takes another step forward, close enough now that Logan can smell his cologne and see the cruel satisfaction in his eyes. "No? Then what are you gonna do about it?" Chase's hand shoots out, shoving Logan's shoulder hard enough to make him stumble backward. "Come on, tough guy. Show everyone what you're made of." The push sends a ripple through the crowd. Gasps, excited whispers, the sound of phones being readied to capture whatever happens next. But Logan doesn't fall. He absorbs the impact with fluid grace, his body moving like water around stone. "Don't," Logan says quietly, and for the first time there's something in his voice that makes Chase hesitate. Not pleading, not fear, but warning. Pure, undiluted warning. But Chase has gone too far to back down now. His reputation, his status, his entire identity depends on breaking Logan Brooks in front of everyone. He reaches into his lunch bag and pulls out a chocolate pudding cup, his smile turning predatory. "You know what, Brooks? I think you need to cool off." He pops the lid, the sound sharp as a gunshot in the tense silence. "Maybe this will help you remember your place." The pudding arcs through the air in slow motion, chocolate brown against the fluorescent lights. Logan watches it come with the heightened awareness his grandfather trained into him, time seeming to stretch like taffy. The pudding hits Logan square in the chest, exploding across his white t-shirt in a burst of brown humiliation. The crowd erupts, laughter, cheers, the cruel satisfaction of witnessing someone else's degradation. Phones flash as the moment is captured from every angle, destined for social media immortality. Logan looks down at his ruined shirt, then back up at Chase's triumphant face. Around them, the laughter grows louder, more vicious. Someone yells, "Food fight!" And more items begin to fly. An apple that hits Logan's shoulder, a carton of milk that splashes across his legs. But Logan doesn't run. He doesn't cover his face or curl into a protective ball. Instead, he stands perfectly still, in the center of the chaos, his breathing steady, his eyes fixed on Chase with laser focus. "Feel better now?" Logan asks, his voice cutting through the noise like a blade through silk. Chase's smile wavers slightly. Something in Logan's tone, in his posture, in the way he's standing despite being covered in food, doesn't match the script Chase has written for this moment. "Yeah," Chase says, but his voice lacks its earlier confidence. "Maybe now you'll..." Logan takes a step forward. Just one step, but it changes everything. The laughter dies in throats, the food throwing stops. Even the phones lower slightly as their owners sense that something fundamental has shifted. "My turn," Logan says softly. And in that moment, Chase Morrison realizes he's made a terrible mistake. Because the boy standing before him, covered in chocolate pudding, surrounded by jeering classmates, humiliated beyond endurance, isn't broken at all. He's finally, after years of restraint and patience and turning the other cheek, ready to show everyone exactly who Logan Brooks really is. Time crystallizes into perfect clarity. The cafeteria noise fades to a whisper, the fluorescent lights seem to dim, and Logan Brooks, gentle Logan, quiet Logan, victim Logan, disappears entirely. In his place stands someone his grandfather would recognize, someone his mother has never seen, someone Chase Morrison never imagined could exist. Logan's first movement is deceptively simple, a slight adjustment of his stance that transforms him from target to predator in the space of a heartbeat. His feet find their foundation with the precision of someone who has practiced 10,000 times, his center of gravity dropping low and stable. Chase, still basking in the afterglow of his chocolate pudding triumph, doesn't see it coming. He's too busy feeding off the crowd's energy, too intoxicated by the rush of public humiliation to notice that Logan's entire demeanor has shifted from passive to lethal. "What did you just..." Chase begins, taking an aggressive step forward with his hand raised for another push. That's when Logan moves. The technique is called Gyakuzuki, a reverse punch that channels power from the ground up through legs, hips, torso, and finally into a fist that strikes with the force of controlled lightning. But Logan's execution transcends mere technique. This is art. 3 years of secret training unleashed in one perfect moment. Logan's hand shoots forward with surgical precision, stopping exactly 1 inch from Chase's solar plexus. The movement is so fast, so controlled, that most observers don't even see it happen. One moment Chase is advancing, the next he's frozen mid-step, his eyes wide with shock and confusion. "I said don't," Logan repeats, his voice carrying the quiet authority of someone who no longer needs to raise it. Chase stumbles backward, his bravado cracking like ice under pressure. Around them, the cafeteria has gone dead silent. 500 students watch with collective held breath as their understanding of reality shifts on its axis. But Jake, loyal to a fault and too stupid to read the warning signs, lunges forward from Logan's left side. "Get away from him, you freak!" Logan doesn't even turn his head. His peripheral vision, trained through countless hours of situational awareness drills, tracks Jake's clumsy approach. As Jake's arm swings in a wild haymaker, Logan flows like water around the attack. Taisabaki, body movement that transforms defense into counterattack. Logan pivots on his left foot, his body spiraling out of Jake's reach, while his right hand guides the momentum past him. Jake's own force carries him forward, off balance and exposed. Logan's open palm finds the pressure point just below Jake's shoulder blade, not striking, just touching with enough precision to send a jolt of nervous system feedback through Jake's entire arm. Jake's hand goes numb instantly, his attack dissolving into confused stumbling. "How did you..." Jake gasps, cradling his deadened arm. But Marcus is already moving, approaching from behind with a lunch tray raised like a weapon. The aluminum surface glints in the fluorescent light as he brings it down toward Logan's head with vicious intent. Logan's response is pure instinct, muscle memory carved into his bones through repetition and dedication. He ducks low, the tray whistling through the space where his head had been. then rises in a spiraling motion that positions him perfectly for what comes next. Ushirogeri, back kick. Logan's leg shoots backward like a piston, his heel finding Marcus's midsection with enough force to lift the larger boy off his feet. But even as Marcus doubles over, gasping for breath, Logan's control is absolute. The kick could have shattered ribs, ruptured organs, ended the fight permanently. Instead, it delivers just enough force to neutralize the threat without causing lasting damage. 3 attackers, 3 perfect responses. The entire sequence takes less than 10 seconds, leaving Logan standing alone in the center of a circle of stunned observers. His breathing remains steady, his posture relaxed but alert, like a cat that's proven its point but remains ready for more. The cafeteria erupts in a chaos of voices, screams, cheers, confused questions shouted over the din. Phones are everywhere now, recording from every angle, as the footage that will change everything captures Logan's impossible transformation. Oh my God, did you see that? Where did he learn to fight like that? Logan Brooks just took down 3 guys. This is insane. Someone call the principal. But Logan isn't listening to the crowd. His attention remains fixed on Chase, who stands frozen in disbelief, his carefully constructed worldview crumbling around him like sand castles at high tide. "You asked what I was going to do about it," Logan says, his voice cutting through the chaos with unnatural clarity. "I did something about it. I stopped you from hurting me." Chase's mouth opens and closes like a fish gasping for air. The boy, who has built his entire identity around physical intimidation, finds himself face to face with someone who operates on a completely different level. Everything Chase thought he knew about power, about strength, about who matters and who doesn't, has been shattered in the span of a few heartbeats. That's impossible," Chase stammers, his voice barely audible above the crowd's roar. Logan takes a step closer and Chase actually flinches, a visible, unmistakable flinch that sends ripples of shock through the observing students. The king of Ridgewood High, reduced to cowering before the boy he's tormented for years. "Nothing's impossible," Logan says quietly. "You just never bothered to look beyond what you wanted to see." Mrs. Martinez, the cafeteria supervisor, finally pushes through the crowd with reinforcements, Mr. Johnson from security and Ms. Peterson from administration. Their faces carry the stunned expression of adults trying to process something that defies their understanding of the school's social order. "What happened here?" Mrs. Martinez demands, her voice shrill with authority and confusion. The crowd erupts in overlapping explanations. "Chase started it. Logan went crazy. It was self-defense. You should have seen the moves he pulled." But Logan simply stands there, still covered in chocolate pudding, his hands at his sides and his breathing perfectly controlled. To the arriving adults, he looks like the same quiet boy they've always known, except for his eyes. His eyes carry something new, something that makes even the authority figures pause. "I defended myself," Logan says simply when the explanations die down. "They attacked me and I stopped them." Ms. Peterson looks from Logan to the 3 boys scattered around him in various states of shock and confusion. Jake cradles his numb arm, Marcus still wheezes from the precisely placed kick, and Chase looks like he's seen a ghost. "Defended yourself, Ms." Peterson repeats, her voice carrying the skeptical tone of someone who has never seen Logan as anything more than a victim. "Logan, these boys are twice your size." "Size doesn't matter," Logan replies, and there's something in his voice, a quiet confidence, an unshakable certainty that makes the adults exchange uncertain glances. The crowd continues to buzz with excitement and disbelief, but Logan has already begun to disengage. The warrior who emerged in response to the threat is receding, leaving behind the gentle boy who volunteers at nursing homes and helps his neighbors with their groceries. But something fundamental has changed. The secret is out. The mask has slipped. And everyone who witnessed the impossible, Logan Brooks defending himself with the skill of a master, will never look at him the same way again. As the administrators begin herding students toward the exits and the immediate chaos starts to subside, Logan catches sight of his reflection in the cafeteria windows. The boy looking back at him is still covered in chocolate pudding, still wearing the same clothes, still carrying the same gentle expression. But everyone else sees something different now. They see someone who chose restraint over retaliation, discipline over destruction, protection over domination. They see someone who has been hiding in plain sight, carrying secrets that reshape everything they thought they knew about strength and weakness, about power and vulnerability. And in the viral videos already uploading to every social media platform imaginable, the world is about to discover that sometimes the most dangerous person in the room is the one nobody saw coming. The first video hits Instagram at 12:47 p.m., just 14 minutes after the cafeteria incident. It's shaky phone footage captured from the back of the crowd, but the audio is crystal clear. Chase's taunts, the chocolate pudding hitting Logan's shirt, and then the impossible. Logan's fluid movements, Jake's confusion, Marcus hitting the floor, and Chase's stammered disbelief. By 1:15 p.m., the video has been shared 37 times. By 2 p.m., it's crossed platforms. TikTok, Twitter, Snapchat stories spreading like wildfire through the interconnected web of teenage social media. The caption reads, "Quiet kid reveals secret martial arts skills. You won't believe what happens next." The transformation begins immediately, but not just online. In the principal's office, Logan sits across from Mrs. Henderson, the afternoon light casting long shadows across her desk. His shirt has been replaced with a spare from the Lost and Found, a faded blue polo that hangs loose on his frame. But his demeanor remains unchanged, calm, centered, unmistakably different from the boy who used to shrink in adult presence. "Logan," Mrs. Henderson begins, her voice carrying the careful tone of someone navigating uncharted territory. "I've been principal here for 12 years, and I've never seen anything quite like what happened today." Logan meets her gaze directly. "I defended myself, Mrs. Henderson, that's all." Defended yourself with what appeared to be professional-level martial arts training. She shuffles through the eyewitness reports on her desk, each one describing the same impossible scene. "Where did you learn to fight like that?" "My grandfather taught me," Logan says simply, "before he died 3 years ago." The answer hangs in the air like a revelation that recontextualizes everything. Mrs. Henderson remembers Logan's grandfather, the quiet elderly man who used to pick Logan up after school, always dressed neatly, always polite. She never knew about his background, never thought to ask. "Your grandfather was a martial arts instructor, among other things?" Logan's voice carries the weight of stories untold, lessons learned in secret. He believed that true strength comes from knowing when not to use it. Mrs. Henderson leans back in her chair, processing this information alongside the afternoon's events. "And today? Was today one of those times when you had to use it?" Logan considers the question with the same careful deliberation his grandfather taught him to apply to everything. "Chase and his friends didn't give me a choice. They escalated until walking away wasn't an option anymore." Down the hall, in the school nurse's office, Chase Morrison stares at his phone with growing horror. The video has reached his own social media feeds now, shared by classmates with captions that range from amazed to mocking. In the footage, he watches himself cower before Logan, actually flinch away from the boy he's tormented for years. The comments are brutal. Chase got humbled by the quiet kid. When you find out your victim is actually a secret weapon. This is what happens when you mess with the wrong person. Chase really thought he was tough until Logan showed him what real strength looks like. Jake and Marcus sit beside him, their own humiliation playing out in high definition across hundreds of screens. Jake's arm still tingles from whatever Logan did to it. while Marcus can't shake the memory of being lifted off his feet by a boy half his size. "How did he do that?" Marcus whispers, replaying the video for the dozenth time. "That move where he just... Ed touched you and your arm went dead?" Jake doesn't answer. He's too busy reading the comments, watching his reputation crumble in real time as the internet processes what they've witnessed. But the viral storm is just beginning. By 4:00 p.m., the video has been screen recorded and posted to YouTube with increasingly dramatic titles. "Bullied Kid's Incredible Revenge. Secret Martial Artist Destroys Bullies. The most satisfying self-defense video ever." The comment section becomes a battleground of opinions. This is exactly what bullies deserve. Kid showed incredible restraint. Those moves were clean. Where did he train? 3 against 1 and they still couldn't touch him. Respect. Finally, someone who stands up to bullies the right way. At 4:30 p.m., Logan walks through the front doors of Ridgewood High to find a world transformed. Students who have never spoken to him before approach with mixtures of awe, curiosity, and newfound respect. The invisible boy has become impossible to ignore. Logan. Sarah Chen from his AP physics class catches up to him near the bike racks. "I can't believe what happened at lunch. That was incredible." Logan pauses, genuinely surprised by the interaction. Sarah has always been kind but distant, part of the academic elite who exist in a different social stratosphere. "It wasn't incredible," he says quietly. "It was necessary." "But the way you moved..." Sarah shakes her head in amazement. "I mean, I've been taking karate classes for 2 years, and I've never seen anything like that. Your control was perfect." Other students gather around, their expressions ranging from curiosity to admiration. For the first time in his high school career, Logan finds himself at the center of positive attention, people wanting to talk to him, not about him. "Is it true your grandfather was like a martial arts master?" asks David Kim from Student Government. "Were you holding back all this time?" wonders Maria Santos, who sits 2 seats away in English Lit. Logan answers their questions with characteristic humility, but something has shifted in the dynamic. He's no longer the victim these students pitied or ignored. He's someone who chose patience over violence, who endured years of torment without retaliating, who finally stood up for himself with precision and control rather than anger and revenge. At 6:00 p.m., Logan's mother arrives home from her shift at the diner to find 17 missed calls and 43 text messages on her phone. Her hands shake as she scrolls through the notifications, each one more bewildering than the last. "Your son is viral. Did you know Logan could fight like that? He's all over social media. You must be so proud." She finds Logan in the living room, sitting quietly with his homework spread across the coffee table, as if this were any other Tuesday evening. But the television is on, muted, showing a local news segment with the caption, "Ridgewood High students' martial arts skills go viral." "Logan," she says softly, setting down her purse. "Honey, what happened today?" Logan looks up from his textbook, his expression carrying the same gentle concern he always shows when his mother is worried. "Some kids at school were giving me trouble. I handled it." "Handled it how?" She sits beside him on the couch, her work-worn hands reaching for his face with maternal instinct. "The videos. Logan, where did you learn to do those things?" "Grandpa taught me," Logan says simply. "Just like he taught me everything else. How to be patient, how to be kind, how to protect myself when kindness isn't enough." His mother's eyes fill with tears, not of sadness but of understanding. She remembers her father-in-law's gentle strength, his quiet dignity, the way he could command respect without ever raising his voice. She sees those same qualities in her son now, refined and tested by fire. "Are you in trouble at school?" "No, Mom. Mrs. Henderson said I acted in self-defense. I'm not in any trouble." But as the evening progresses and the viral storm continues to build, it becomes clear that Logan Brooks, the invisible boy, the gentle soul, the secret warrior, will never be in trouble again. Because the world has finally seen him for who he really is. Someone who chose restraint until restraint was no longer possible. Someone who met aggression with precision rather than rage. Someone who proved that true strength doesn't announce itself until it absolutely has to. And in a world hungry for heroes, for stories of justice served and bullies humbled, Logan Brooks has become something he never sought to be. A symbol of what happens when good people finally decide they've had enough. But with viral fame comes consequences nobody could have predicted, and Logan's carefully ordered world is about to change in ways that will test everything his grandfather taught him about strength, wisdom, and the true meaning of power. Wednesday morning arrives like the first day of a different world. Logan walks through the same front doors he's entered for 3 years, but the hallways of Ridgewood High have been fundamentally transformed. Not in architecture, but in atmosphere. The invisible boy has become impossible to ignore. Logan. The voice belongs to Melissa Rodriguez, student body president and someone who has never spoken to him before. She approaches with a confidence that suggests this conversation has been planned, rehearsed even. "I wanted to thank you for what you did yesterday." Logan stops, genuinely puzzled by the gratitude. "Thank me? I just defended myself." "Exactly." Melissa's eyes carry an intensity that speaks to deeper currents. "Do you know how many kids in this school get picked on every day? How many of us just accept it because we think there's no other choice?" Around them, students pause in their morning routines to listen. Logan notices the shift. Conversations quieting, heads turning, an undercurrent of attention that feels both overwhelming and uncomfortable. "I didn't do it to make a statement," Logan says carefully. "I did it because I had to." "But that's exactly why it matters," Melissa continues. "You showed everyone that we don't have to just take it. That quiet doesn't mean weak, that being different doesn't make you defenseless." The conversation spreads outward like ripples in a pond. Other students approach, not the popular crowd or the athletes, but the overlooked ones. The kids who eat lunch alone, who hurry through hallways with heads down, who have learned to make themselves small to avoid attention. Marcus Thompson, a sophomore who has struggled with his stutter since childhood, steps forward with visible courage. Yesterday, when Trevor and his friends were making fun of how I tea-talk, I thought about what you did, and I told them to stop, and they did." Sarah Kim, a junior who has endured comments about her appearance for months, nods in agreement. "I reported the girls who keep posting cruel comments about my photos. I never would have done that before yesterday." Logan listens to their stories with growing awareness of something he never intended to create. A movement, a shift in the school's emotional climate. His single act of self-defense has become a catalyst for others to find their own voices, their own strength. But transformation brings complications. As Logan approaches his locker, he finds Chase Morrison waiting there, not with his usual entourage, but alone. The boy who commanded fear and respect through intimidation now stands with shoulders hunched, his confidence replaced by something Logan has never seen in him before. Genuine uncertainty. "Brooks," Chase begins, his voice lacking its usual aggressive edge. We need to talk." Logan studies Chase's face, noting the dark circles under his eyes, the way his hands fidget with nervous energy. "About what?" "About yesterday. About..." Chase struggles with words that don't come naturally to someone who has never had to examine his own behavior. "About everything." They walk in awkward silence toward an empty classroom, away from the curious eyes and phone cameras that follow Logan's every move now. Chase closes the door behind them, creating a bubble of privacy in the fishbowl that Logan's life has become. "I watched the video," Chase says finally. "Like really watched it. Not just the part where you did what you did, but the beginning, what I did to you." Logan waits, recognizing the difficulty of genuine self-reflection in someone who has never been forced to examine their actions. "I looked like..." Chase swallows hard. "I looked like my father." The admission hangs between them like a bridge Logan never expected to cross. In 3 years of conflict, Chase has never revealed anything personal, never shown vulnerability. But the viral video has forced him to see himself through the world's eyes, and the image isn't flattering. "Your father?" Logan asks quietly. "He's got this way of making people feel small," Chase continues, his voice dropping to almost a whisper. "Makes me feel small, and I guess I've been doing the same thing to you, to other people." Logan processes this revelation with the same careful consideration his grandfather taught him to apply to all significant moments. The bully revealing the source of his cruelty, the pattern of hurting people that perpetuates across generations. "That doesn't excuse what you did," Logan says, but his voice carries understanding rather than accusation. "I know." Chase looks up, meeting Logan's eyes for perhaps the first time in their complicated relationship. "I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm trying to figure out how to be different." The conversation is interrupted by a soft knock on the classroom door. Mrs. Patterson, the English teacher, peers inside with the expression of someone navigating delicate territory. "Sorry to interrupt, boys, but Logan, there are some people here to see you." Logan follows her down the hallway, leaving Chase alone with his thoughts and the difficult work of examining a lifetime of learned behaviors. In the main office, Logan finds 3 visitors who represent the unexpected consequences of viral fame. The first is a middle-aged woman in a crisp suit, who introduces herself as Dr. Jennifer Walsh from the district office. Her presence suggests that Logan's incident has attracted attention beyond the school level. The second visitor surprises Logan more, Master Kim, owner of the martial arts studio downtown, his weathered face carrying the recognizable bearing of someone who understands the deeper implications of what happened in the cafeteria. The third visitor makes Logan's breath catch in his throat. An elderly Japanese man with gentle eyes and ramrod posture, wearing a simple black uniform that speaks to decades of dedication. "Logan-kun," the man says, his voice carrying the same cadence Logan remembers from his grandfather's stories. "My name is Tanaka-sensei. I was your grandfather's teacher many years ago." The revelation recontextualizes everything. Logan's grandfather, the gentleman who taught him control and discipline, had learned from this master, someone whose presence in the small office seems to expand the space itself. "Grandfather never mentioned," Logan begins. "Kenji was humble about his achievements," Tanaka-sensei says with a slight smile. "But he wrote to me about you, about your training, your character, your potential. Yesterday's video showed me that his letters were not the proud exaggerations of a grandfather, but the careful observations of a teacher who recognized something special." Dr. Walsh steps forward, her administrative mindset struggling to process the spiritual implications of the conversation. "Logan, we've received several inquiries about your abilities. College recruiters, martial arts programs, even a documentary filmmaker who wants to tell your story." Logan feels the weight of expectations settling on his shoulders like a heavy cloak. The quiet boy who just wanted to get through high school has become something he never sought to be. A symbol, an inspiration, a story worth telling to the world. But it's Master Kim who speaks to Logan's deepest concerns. The viral video shows technique, but it also shows something more important: restraint, character, the mark of someone who was taught not just how to fight, but why fighting should be the last resort. Tanaka-sensei nods approvingly. "Your grandfather would be proud, not of the fighting, but of the years you chose not to fight. That patience, that discipline, those are the true measures of a martial artist." As the meeting concludes and the visitors prepare to leave, Logan realizes that his world has expanded beyond the familiar boundaries of Ridgewood High. The secret he kept for 3 years has opened doors he never knew existed, created opportunities he never imagined possible. But walking back through the hallways, greeting students who now see him as someone worth knowing, Logan carries his grandfather's lessons like a compass pointing toward true north. Fame and opportunity are temporary, but character, the quiet strength that chooses kindness over cruelty, patience over revenge, protection over domination, that endures. The transformation isn't just Logan's. It's spreading through the school, like dawn breaking across a landscape, illuminating corners that have been dark for too long, giving hope to those who thought they had to face their battles alone. And in a world that often celebrates the loudest voices and the strongest fists, Logan Brooks has proven that sometimes the most powerful force is the quiet soul who finally decides it's time to stand up. 3 months later, the morning light filters through the windows of Ridgewood High with a different quality, warmer somehow, more welcoming. Logan Brooks sits in the same corner of the cafeteria where his transformation began, but everything around him has changed in ways both subtle and profound. The lunch table that once isolated him now buzzes with conversation. Marcus, the boy who found his voice after Logan found his strength, shares stories about joining the debate team. Sarah discusses her new role as peer counselor for students facing bullying. A dozen other faces surround them, kids who were once invisible, now visible to each other and to themselves. "Did you see the feature in Martial Arts Monthly?" asks David, sliding a magazine across the table. The cover shows Logan in the modest dojo where he now teaches twice a week. His stance perfect, but his expression characteristically humble. Logan glances at the article, but doesn't pick up the magazine. Fame still sits uncomfortably on his shoulders, like clothing that doesn't quite fit. They made it sound more dramatic than it was. "More dramatic?" Sarah laughs. "Logan, you changed everything. Not just here, but..." She gestures toward her phone, where notifications from the Anti-Bullying Foundation, Logan inadvertently inspired, continue to ping throughout the day. The ripples have spread farther than anyone imagined. Videos of Logan's measured response to aggression have been used in conflict resolution seminars. His story appears in educational materials about nonviolent self-defense. The boy who just wanted to eat lunch in peace has become an accidental ambassador for a different way of thinking about strength and courage. But it's the smaller changes that matter most to Logan. He watches Chase Morrison across the cafeteria, sitting with a different group now. Not the athletes who fed off cruelty, but kids involved in community service. Chase catches Logan's eye and nods, a gesture that carries weight earned through months of difficult conversations and genuine change. The transformation wasn't immediate or easy. Chase spent weeks in counseling, working through the patterns of behavior he'd inherited from his father. He made personal apologies to every student he'd tormented, not grand gestures, but quiet acknowledgments of harm done. Some accepted, others didn't. But the effort itself marked a fundamental shift in who Chase Morrison chose to be. Logan rises from his table, his movement causing the familiar ripple of attention that still follows him through the hallways. But he's learned to carry it differently now, not as a burden, but as responsibility. Every interaction is an opportunity to model the principles his grandfather taught him. As he walks toward his next class, Logan passes a scene that would have been impossible 3 months ago. Jake, once Chase's most loyal follower, kneels beside a freshman who has dropped his books. Instead of mocking or ignoring the younger student, Jake helps gather the scattered papers, his expression showing genuine concern. "You okay?" Jake asks, his voice carrying none of the aggressive edge Logan remembers. "Yeah, thanks," the freshman responds, surprise evident in his voice. Logan pauses, watching the interaction. This is the true measure of change. Not the viral videos or magazine articles, but moments like this. Small kindnesses where cruelty once flourished. Choices to build up rather than tear down. In AP Physics, Mrs. Henderson calls Logan to the front of the class. "I want everyone to see this," she says, holding up a letter with official letterhead. Logan has been accepted to MIT with a full scholarship, not for martial arts, but for academic excellence and character. The class erupts in applause, but Logan feels the familiar discomfort with public recognition. Academic achievement has always been important to him, but he knows the scholarship came partly because of the attention his story generated. Success feels different when it arrives wrapped in circumstances you never chose. After school, Logan makes his way to the community center where his real work continues. The martial arts program he started with Master Kim has grown from 5 students to 30, but it's not about teaching fighting techniques. It's about teaching the same lessons his grandfather emphasized: discipline, respect, the difference between strength and violence. "Sensei Logan," calls out Emma, a 12-year-old who was being bullied until she found confidence through training. "Can you show us that move again, the one where you redirect someone's energy?" Logan demonstrates Taisabaki, the body movement that transforms an attack into an opportunity for control. But as he guides his students through the technique, he emphasizes the philosophy behind it. "Remember," he tells them, his voice carrying the same patient authority his grandfather once used, "the goal isn't to hurt anyone. It's to protect yourself, and if possible to help your attacker understand that violence isn't the answer." 8-year-old Marcus raises his hand, but what if they don't want to understand? Logan considers the question with the same careful thought he applies to all complex issues. Then you do what you have to do to stay safe, but you don't let their anger become your anger. You stay true to who you are. The training session ends with meditation, 30 young people sitting in respectful silence, learning that true strength begins with understanding yourself. Logan watches their peaceful faces and sees his grandfather's legacy living on, not in viral videos or magazine articles, but in the quiet moments when children learn that they have choices, that they can be strong without being cruel. As evening approaches, Logan walks home through the same streets he's traveled for years, but the weight on his shoulders has shifted from burden to purpose. The shy boy who avoided conflict has become someone who teaches others how to find their own strength, their own voice, their own way of standing up without tearing others down. At home, his mother greets him with the same warm smile she's always given, but her eyes hold new understanding. She's watched her son transform from victim to survivor to teacher, and she sees in him the same quiet dignity her father-in-law possessed. "The college counselor called," she says over dinner. "MIT wants you to consider their conflict resolution program along with engineering. They think your unique perspective might be valuable." Logan nods, already knowing his answer. Engineering will always be important to him, but his grandfather's true gift wasn't just martial arts knowledge. It was the understanding that strength comes in many forms, that real change happens one person at a time, one choice at a time. Later that evening, Logan sits in his living room, surrounded by the photographs and memories that shaped him. His grandfather's training uniform still hangs in the corner, but it no longer feels like a weight of expectation. It feels like a reminder of possibilities, of the difference one person can make when they choose wisdom over revenge, discipline over destruction, protection over domination. Outside his window, the lights of the city twinkle like stars, each one representing a life, a story, a choice between building up or tearing down. Logan knows that his viral moment will fade, that other stories will capture the world's attention. But the lessons will remain, in the students he teaches, in the bullies who choose differently, in the victims who find their own strength. The quiet revolution he never intended to start continues to spread, person by person, choice by choice, proving that sometimes the most powerful force in the world is someone who simply decides they've had enough of seeing others hurt. If this story touched you, share in the comments what moved you most, and send this video to someone who needs to hear it today. Logan Brooks learned that true strength isn't about how hard you can hit, it's about how much you can endure while still choosing kindness. Sometimes, the most dangerous person in the room is the one who refuses to let the world make them cruel. In a world that often celebrates the loudest voices and the strongest fists, remember this: the quiet ones might surprise you. Not because they're weak, but because they're strong enough to choose when their strength matters most.